Good morning, everyone, and thank you for your presence here online today on fourth day of AICT Atal sponsored 5 days workshop on advances in research support services in academic and research library. So indeed, it's quite a pleasure to welcome you all on this day. And today we have a two eminent person. I'm sure that you are hearing our chat initially. So Dr. Neeraj is with us, and he is Deputy Librarian at Punjab University, Chandigarh. And we are privileged to have Professor Manoj Sinha from Assam University, Silchar. So he is very senior professor in the field, and I have association with Professor Sinha since 1991. So he was our librarian in the Navodaya Vidyalaya, Gorakhpur. So he is very close to me, like a fatherly figure, and he has a lot of motivation when I was in the school. We have already traveled him a lot when we went to the library for at that time Nandan and other magazines were quite popular that time. So he used to make cutting of those quizzes and all these things, and Sinha sir used to like कि don't cut it, note kar lo, aise kar lo, likewise. So it was really amazing to see Professor Sinha all time whenever we meet together, and he is a lot of motivation for many of us in terms of how to pursue a library services in your career. So we are thankful to you, sir, for your gracious presence here online. And today's session is actually very important for us to understand that how we can increase the research visibility of our research scholars faculty member through using different tools and techniques. So because everyone do hard work to publish their research in high impact factor journals and all these things, but at some point of time the research activity is not actually visible properly. So we have to make our faculty, our research scholar, to learn about all these things, how to market their activity, what are the tools and techniques they can use to showcase their research activity. So I think these two dignitaries are going to discuss a lot. So let us welcome once again Professor Sinha and Dr. Neeraj Singh. So I hand over dais to Professor Sinha to take the proceeding further. And to assist Dr. Sinha, we have our library staff. Dr. Har Singh is there, Mr. Harpreet Kaur is there, Gurvinder is there. So in case any kind of query or questions come into the chat box, they will handle it, and they will assist Professor Sinha in finding out the pertinent question about the session. So I welcome once again, and over to you, Professor Sinha. Thank you.
A very good morning to all of you. Thank you, Dr. Sri Ram, for giving me this opportunity. Honorable Director, Thapar Institute of Engineering and Technology, Patiala, esteemed member of the panelists, Dr. Neeraj Singh, Dr. Neeraj Chaurasia, and others, Professor N. Lakshman Rao sir, Dr. Sri Ram, Organizing Secretary, other members of the Organizing Committee, eminent speakers of today's session, Dr. Neeraj Singh, Senior and Junior Allies Professionals, friends, Dr. Vinod Kumar, Ms. Harpreet Kaur, all the valuable participants. It is a great honor for me to be part of this 1 week long AICT Atal Faculty Development Program on advances in research support services in academic and research libraries, which is being organized by the Naval Nalanda Library of Thapar Institute of Engineering and Technology, Patiala. At the outset, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Sri Ram and his team, who has given me this opportunity to chair the session and moderate the program this morning. Now, I would like to introduce today's speaker of the session, Dr. Neeraj Singh. Dr. Neeraj Singh is recipient of Commonwealth Professional Fellowship twice and is an active manager and information manager and working as a deputy librarian at AC Joshi Library, Punjab University, Chandigarh. He has designed different subject gateways on various areas at Punjab University Library and awarded with the Best Service Vice Chancellor Award in 2009. He is associated with the design of various courses for MOOCs. He is an active speaker at various conferences and seminars organized by the Institute of Repute. He is also teaching courses of UG, PG, and PGD LAN at Punjab University, Chandigarh. He has designed different subject gateways. So with this, from my side, I can say that he is a brilliant speaker, and I have already attended his mini session during this lockdown period when he has delivered many lectures, and I was also one of the participant of that. So I am well accustomed with, aware of his capability. I hope he will do justice to this topic. So today's topic is research visibility, tools and technique. As we know that, as Dr. Sriram has already mentioned that we, the faculty members and LIS professionals are doing some research work and do some publications. And sometime what happen, our publications do not get so much visibility. So there are some tools and technique through which if we adopt all those tools and technique, then definitely our research, our profile will be visible to others. And in this way, you can have enhanced citations of your publications. And you would be able to market yourself. So nowadays, this is time for marketing and we should market ourselves. So how faculty members would be able to market themselves. Today's speaker, Dr. Neeraj Singh, will definitely cover many aspects of many platforms like identification sites and many academic social media sites. So I will not go into detail. I will now hand over the mic to Dr. Neeraj Singh for his lecture. Now, Dr. Neeraj Singh, please, you can start.
Thank you very much, sir, for introducing me to the participant. Very good morning to all of you. And before I will start my session, my sincere thanks to Dr. Sriram for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to deliver today's talk, and also providing me this opportunity to interact with the LIS professionals of our country. Okay, so before I will start sharing my slide, let me ask you one question, right? And the question is, do you think that there is any need to invite any expert or any resource person in such type of workshop or any professional events like conference, seminar, where he or she come and deliver a talk on how you can promote yourself on a social media, right? And when I asked this question to all of you, I think you must have given a smile. And you immediately, the reply which came your mind is that, sir, we already know how to promote ourselves in social media, right? And most of us, we are very well percent with the already social media platforms are available. And wherever there is any occasion where we can showcase our personal as well as professional achievement amongst our friend circle, amongst our fraternity, we always try to showcase ourselves on various social media platforms. Now here I am saying the term professional, professional activities. But again, there is a restrictions in professional activity. Now, whenever we got an opportunity to deliver some talk, whenever we got an opportunity to have some degree or certificate in our profession, we always try to put on social media platform like Facebook, etc. But The next question which I'm going to ask to you is, how many of you are active in terms of promoting your research finding, in terms of promoting your research activity on various social media platforms? And I am sure that the number will be less as compared to the first question which I have asked to you. And the reason is we are not much aware about this concept. What is basically a research visibility? What is the importance of the research visibility? And what are the various platforms are available which we can use in terms of showcasing our research finding? In relation to this thing, I also wanted to share one latest experience. Like yesterday, I was talking with some of my friend who is from the same profession, and he is also one of the participants. He asked me yesterday, "Okay, sir, I have seen in a program schedule that tomorrow you are going to deliver a talk on research visibility." I said, "Yes, I am going to speak on research visibility." Then he said that, okay, I know about the research visibility. It is something related to ResearchGate. It is something related to Mendeley and all these things. So from his point of view, he might be right, because as far as knowledge is concerned, when we speak or when we talk about research visibility, these are the only things generally comes in our mind, specifically when we talk about the LIS professional. That is why I'm very thankful to Dr. Sriram for giving me this opportunity and assigning me this topic, where the motive or the agenda behind this presentation is not only give you the overview about what are the platforms available, but also let you know about the importance of this concept. What is basically a research visibility? Why there is a need to showcase your research findings, right? Is there any issues related when you are opening your research findings? And obviously, what are the various tools available, which not only help LIS professionals, but it is our also duty that we also educate our faculty and research scholars so that they can also use similar platform as far as research visibility is concerned. Okay, so now I'm sharing a slide with you, and I just want confirmation from organizer end whether it is visible or not. Okay, so I'm already sharing my screen, Sriram sir.
No, it is not coming.
Okay, so let me share then first. Share screen.
Yes, now it is coming.
Let me do some sort of adjustment, then I will start. Okay, so this is the topic of my today's presentation. So as I just discussed with you, this is the agenda of my today's presentation. And in my 1.5 hour lecture, these are the 3 areas which I am going to cover. I will talk about what is scientific publications and what is their impact, how we can measure the impact of scientific research, and tools and techniques for increasing the visibility and impact of your research work. Now let's start the presentation with sharing with you some facts and figures related to scientific publications and their impact. I think most of you might be aware about there is one portal which is known as SCImago Journal and Country Rank, right? So it's a publicly accessible portal that includes the journals and country specific indicators developed from the information contained in the Scopus database. So you can 100% rely about the data which we are getting from this website. So I have just made a search and I just wanted to rank the country based on their publications and based on their impact of their publication in terms of knowing the number of citations. So from this slide also you can see when I rank the country in order to the number of publication and citations. So these are the list of top 10 countries. You can see that United States is leading from the front and India is at the 9th position. So we are feeling proud in this way that we are in top 10 country list. Now, if you compare India, United States with India, you can see that United States as a country is having H index of 2386, and documents so far it is published 2 crore 56 lakh, and citation has received nearly 67 crore 84 lakh, and citation per document, if we calculate, it is nearly 26.42. And the coverage of this data is from 1996 to 2019. As we are aware that Scopus is releasing the articles since 1996, right? When we compare United States with India, you can see India is having H index of just a second. Okay, so there is one pop-up window is coming in front of. Okay, so India is having H index of 624, documents 3 crore 74 lakh, and the citations 3 crore 36 crore 48 lakh something. 3 crore 64 lakh. So in this way, you can see where India is standing as far as ranking the countries are concerned in terms of scientific publication. Now there is another data which I wanted to share with you, and this data was compiled by US National Scientific Foundation, and they have conducted a study from the period 2008 to 2018, right? And based on this data, there are many publications, there are many magazines and newspapers, they have also covered their story based on this data. And this year also, India Today has published news which is based on this data, and the Press Trust of India has also uploaded this data on January 2020. So from this data also you can see that China is leading from the front, and during 2008 to 2018, China has published 5,28,000 research papers with a global share of 20.67%, followed by United States. And India is at the 3rd position, and India is sharing a 5.31% of global share. So these are some of the key highlights of this study, where it is clearly mentioned that between 2008 to 2018, science and engineering articles from India grew at an average annual rate growth of 11%, which is quite good, right? And total number of scientific papers published worldwide during this period increased from 17 lakh to 25 lakh, right? In this study, it was also highlighted that for India, it is good news that they have increased in terms of quantity. But when we talk about the quality, India is far behind when we compare ourselves with any European Union countries or USA. And our impact was nearly 1%, which is quite low. Now, sharing another data with you, there is one article which is published in Nature Journal, and the study was published on 2014. And the title of the study was the top 100 papers. I have given the link, and you can also go to the Nature website if you are interested to read this full study. Now, as per this study, there are two main findings. First one is the high impact factor journal accept less than 10% of the articles submitted to them, and over 43% of SCI index paper. CI, the Size Citation Index, is basically a product of Thomson Reuters. Now it is known as Clarivate Analytics. So as per this study, it says over 43% of SCI index papers have never ever received any citation, right? There is another study which is conducted by Animate Your Science. This is basically a company which is regarded as a global leader as far as scientific communication is concerned. And the same study is available on their website also. And in this study, they have reported that nearly 7,000 papers are published every single day, and many never get cited or even read, right? So with this 3 slide, what I'm trying to say is that there is a general assumption amongst the research scholar and the faculty member is, if we are publishing our research paper in high impact factor journal, then they are 100% sure that they will receive a good number of citations. But based on these previous 3 studies, I can say that if you are publishing a good quality paper in a scientific journal, you are only halfway towards receiving a citation in future. Now the remaining 50%, you can say, is totally dependent on how you make your research visible or how you are disseminating the publications via proper utilization of research tools, which allows the researcher to increase the research impact and citations for their publications. Now, you can see that in the last para, I have highlighted 2 words, right? And these 2 words are very important. And based on these 2 words, in my upcoming slides, I'm going to explain you what is the meaning of research dissemination, what is the meaning of research visibility, and what are the tools available which will definitely going to help you in terms of measuring or in terms of increasing the impact of scientific publication, right? So now first let's discuss about the concept of what is basically a measuring research impact. So from this slide also you can see, if we categorize the measuring research impact, there are basically 2 broader categories. First is known as academic impact, and the second is known as social impact. Now, academic impact is basically measures through some metrics which we called as research metrics, and these are journal metrics, author metrics, and article metrics, right? So what is journal metric? Journal metrics such as impact factor, citation pattern within journal, and determine which journals are highly cited. So being a library science professional, it is very much clear that the impact factor is the only well-established criteria for evaluating or for ranking any journal in any particular discipline, right? And when we talk about the article metric or author metric, it is basically measured in terms of number of citations your paper is receiving or your paper has been received. Now, I'm not going to discuss about what is citation count because we are well versed about this concept, what is basically citation. Now, another aspect through which you can measure the impact of your research is known as social impact or societal impact. So in this, we are using social networking platforms in terms of measuring your research impact. And for this, there is a well-established concept is there, it's known as altmetrics, which help researcher in terms of knowing the impact of their research on a social media platform, right? Now let's discuss about why visibility of research is important. From this slide also, you can see these are the 4 main reasons for which there is need to make your research visible amongst the academic community, right? So by making your research visible and accessible, you increase chances of your research being noticed, used, and having impact, thus increasing your own reputation and chances of success in your. So this paragraph is basically written based on the various studies conducted by different research scholars, where it is clearly reported, where it is clearly observed that once you make your research visible, the chances of getting citations is always higher, right? And now let's discuss about these 4 aspects, and we will try to understand why there is a need to make our research visible. Now the first one is increase access. So what does it mean to increase access? Like for example, if you are publishing your research paper in with any publisher, let's say Elsevier, Taylor Francis, or any reputed publisher. So once your paper is published, now the condition is even for you, for your university, for your organization, if they wanted to access your research, in that case you have to pay to the publisher, because there is a commercial model always being at the background whenever we are publishing our research with any commercial publisher. And there is a big market. There is one study conducted by Outsell in 2018, and the same is available on Google, which has estimated that how big this publication industry is. Now just try to understand the commercial aspect of publisher. Now, when you submit your paper to any publisher, the publisher or the editor, they are not going to pay you a single penny. Now, once you submit your paper, one of us are being associated as a editorial board member, right? And we know the responsibility of editor-in-chief and editorial board member. Whatever task, whatever duties they are performing, even the publisher, they are not paying a single penny to the editorial board member. Now, once the editorial board, they are satisfied with your paper, then they refer your paper for peer review process. And I think most of us, we are also involved ourselves as a reviewer with some of the publishers. And you can imagine how much time and effort it requires to review any research paper. For me, sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's a couple of days. So I have to spend whole 2 days and time and effort for reviewing our paper. And for reviewer also, they are not going to pay you a single penny. But once you published your paper, even for your university, for yourself only, you have to pay the amount to access your research paper. So in this way, what you are doing, you are basically limiting the access of your research paper. For example, if you publish your research paper with Elsevier Journal, now there is a condition unless your university will not have access of Science Direct, no other research scholar can access your paper. Now, that is why there is a need that even if you have published your paper with commercial publisher, there is always a scope where you can make your research in a public domain or various academic websites which are basically built keeping in view this objective in their mind. So if you are making your research visible, then you are basically increasing the access of your research. The next aspect is increased download. So this is well-known fact. Once you will make your research in publicly accessible platform, there is always chances that if your research is a qualitative in nature, and if your research is genuine, if your research is authentic, then there is a chances that the researchers or the users around the world, they will definitely going to download your paper. And if they will start downloading your paper, and there is always a higher chances that you will receive citations. So it will also leads to increase number of citations of your research. And overall, what is the impact it is going to make in terms of increasing the impact of your research? Impact, you can see that it will increase the number of citations in your profile. It will increase the H index. It will increase your I10 index, and it will also increase the altmetrics index as far as measuring the impact at your personal level is concerned. Now, from publishers' point of view, for them it's also a win-win situation, because if the researcher, they will start citing your paper, the journal impact factor will automatically increase, because as we are already know the fact that how impact factor is being calculated. So it's totally dependent upon the number of citations articles received in that particular, which is published by any journal. So in this 4 aspect, you can say that if you are making your research visible, there is a win-win situation for both as an individual researcher as well as publisher also. But there is a one thing which we have to keep in our mind, and this thing is the copyright policies and self-archiving. Now let's try to understand what is this copyright policy and self-archiving. Like, I think some of you or most of you might have published your research paper, and whenever we have published our research paper, there is a first condition which publishers impose to the research scholar is to sign a copyright agreement, right? And once you sign the copyright agreement, in that case, what you are doing, you are basically giving all rights to the publisher, right? And here, what is the mistake we are doing? And this is my personal experience also. Whenever I wanted to publish my research paper with any topmost publisher, and whenever it is, accepted by the peer review committee, the Once the publisher, they send me copyright agreement, I never try to bother about reading all such agreement, all such points which they have mentioned in their agreement, because sometimes for a researcher it's a legal language and sometimes it is very difficult to understand the points which they have mentioned in their copyright agreement. And this is the area where the publishers, they are taking advantage from the research scholar, because once you will sign, then there is a no scope, right? Sometime for a research scholar, if you wanted to retain the reuse rights forever with you, in that case, before signing a copyright agreement, you can make the changes. You can tell the publishers that I wanted to have access reuse right forever, and these are the terms and conditions which I wanted to incorporate in your copyright agreement, right? In this case, you can always protect your work, and you are always free to upload, to make your research visible in a public domain without checking the copyright policy of the publishers. But again, there is a condition. Not all the publishers, they will be ready to accept the conditions which you wanted to incorporate in their copyright transfer agreement. But let me tell you, there's a concept called addendum. So addendum is what? Addendum is when you wanted to incorporate your terms and conditions in any copyright license agreement. But again, you can say that the copyright agreement are basically written in a legal language. And being a library science professional, being a social science professional, right? We don't know about how to write these legal languages. So keeping in view this thing, there is a one very good website. It's called Scholars Copyright Addendum Engine, right? And let me show you the beauty of this website. And the beauty of this website is when you open this website, these are the 4 or 5 fields which you have to enter. Like first, for example, I wanted to publish my article, for example, Library Philosophy and Practice, and this is the title of my paper. So first you enter the title of your paper, enter the name of the journal, enter the author information, and enter the publisher detail. Now here you can see at the last column, there is a tab, or you can see under agreement type. So there are 6 or 7 categories of agreement types are available. For example, I wanted to retain the reuse access right. Again, let me make you clear what is this access reuse rights I'm trying to say here is. For example, if you have published your research paper with any publisher, right? And that article is now published with that particular journal. Now you are in the process of writing another paper where you wanted to take some content from your previously published work. Now, as per the copyright, there is a condition that either you have to take permission from the publisher, or generally in academia, we have to give citation to our previously published research paper. Now you can say, so what is the harm of giving self-citation of our research paper? There is no harm. But sometimes whenever you are applying for promotion, whenever you are applying for any funding agencies, sometime while checking your profile in Google, in Scopus or Web of Science, they try to remove the self-citations from your total citation count, right? So you are absolutely right. There is no harm if you are citing your own paper. But it is not only about the citation. For example, you have created your blog, or you have created your profile in various social academic websites where you just wanted to upload your paper. If you are not retaining the access reuse right, in that case, in that condition, you have to totally dependent upon the publisher's copyright policy and the self-archiving rule, right? So that is why I just wanted to make you aware that this website will help you in terms of making the condition, in terms of making the legal language, which will going to help you whenever you are trying to sign a copyright agreement with any publisher, right? You just select the access type which you wanted to retain, and automatically it will create some 5 or 6 clauses. So these clauses you can share with the publisher, and if the publisher, they don't have any problem, you can incorporate these conditions in your copyright agreement. And once it is done, then you are absolutely free to make your research visible in any access platform. There is no need to check the copyright policy of any company, right? But generally, without reading all such things, we signed a copyright and we just give rights for our research paper to the publishers. Now, before making your research paper accessible in various academic social networking websites, you have to check, you have to see the copyright policies and the self-archiving policies of different publishers. But before going to that point, first you have to understand that what are the different component of any research paper, right? So in this slide also you can see there are basically three component of any research paper. First is known as preprint. Preprint means work in progress submitted version. So when you first time submit your research paper for the publication to the editor, that is known as preprint. And in that case, author always be shared. You can always share in a green open access repository at any time, right? So for uploading your preprint document in any green open access repository, there is no need to check the copyright policy of any publisher. Now, once your paper is accepted for publication after peer review process and after you have incorporated all the changes suggested by the reviewer, then the final version, which is also known as author accepted manuscript, is known as postprint. So in postprint, you can always be shared in a green open access repository after accepted by journals sometime after embargo. Like for example, if you have published your paper with Elsevier or Wiley, so sometimes they put a condition that after a period of 6 months or 12 months, you can only upload the post-print version of your research paper in any repository. And the third version, which is known as publisher version, it is basically available in PDF, HTML, XML format. And generally, if you are publishing with quality journal, you will also see a DOI number, which is a persistent URL of your research paper, right? That is known as published version. So it can usually only be shared if published by a gold open access or hybrid open access journal, right? So these are the terminology like green open access, hybrid I have used. So I'm going to explain you in my next slide. So here we just try to understand what are the various components of any research paper. Now you can see from this slide also that publicly sharing your non-open access publications, for example on ResearchGate, is also bound by copyright. Now generally, even I'm seeing in my university also, like research scholars, they are creating their account on ResearchGate, but what they are doing, they are downloading their paper from the publisher's website and they are just uploading on ResearchGate because they are not much aware about the copyright issues and what are the repercussions if there is a violation of copyright, right? But being a library science professional, it's our duty. First, we try to understand ourselves, what is these terms and conditions, then only we can educate our teacher and faculty about the same thing. So the publishers have different policies and embargo periods from different versions of articles, right? It is 100% true, which I have already explained you, because the publisher's policy vary from the version of your research. So for preprint, it can usually be publicly shared without restriction and embargo. For postprint, the postprint can usually be publicly shared after an embargo period, and publisher's version usually cannot be publicly shared. Right. Now next thing is we have to check whether any journal is a green open access or not. When any journal is following blue channel of open access or yellow channel of open access or white channel of open access, right? For this thing, I think most of you are familiar with this portal or a website which is known as Sherpa Romi, right? So you can search any journal or publisher or by ISSN to see the copyright and self-archiving policies of any particular journal. Just let me give you one example. For example, if you have published your research paper with Nature Journal, now you wanted to see whether Nature publisher is allowing me to upload my research which I have published with Nature in any open access repository? The answer you can check from this straightforward Romeo website. You can see that Nature is only allowing the research scholar to upload the preprint version of their research paper. And you can see there is a red cross mark is there. Author cannot archive post-print or publisher's version of PDF of published article, right? So you should be very much careful while making your research visible amongst the academic community while checking through this website, right? And I think you might be aware about the green, gold, open route of open access, so I'm not going to discuss about this thing. Now, the next thing is how to increase the visibility of your research work, right? So let me tell you one more thing, like making the research visible is not only once you published your research paper. It's basically a continued process. So whenever you start writing your research, you have started working on some research. So don't wait that once I will publish my research with any journal, in that case only I have a privilege to share my research. No, there's absolutely wrong thing. Even while carrying out your research, before publishing your research, there are various channels where you can upload your research related communication assets with any open access repository publishers. That is why there is a concept of research data management, right? That I'm going to discuss in one slide in my upcoming presentation or my upcoming slides, right? Now, talking about what is the basically what are the category of visibility of your research. So broadly, you can categorize into three areas. First is general e-visibility. What does it mean? It means if you are searching Google, if you are searching Yahoo, and you are finding that your paper is, available through any search engine, that condition we can term as a general e-visibility, right? Because there are lots of reasons. If you have published your research paper in open access journal, then definitely Google and Yahoo, they are going to index your research paper, right? Sometime if you are uploaded your paper in some repository, in that condition also your paper is accessible through any search engine. So first try whether your paper is accessible with any search engine or not. If it is coming, that means you can say that my research has got a general e-visibility. Now the next thing is professional e-visibility. Now professional e-visibility means if you have created your professional account in LinkedIn or Twitter or any professional networking site. In that case also, if you are uploading, if you are listing all your research paper, that will enhance your professional e-visibility. For example, I have created my profile in LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is very useful website from career point of view. So mostly the researcher, they are talking about their skills, either managerial skill or administrative skill in such platform. But they are not showcasing, they are not listing their research publications. But there are few research scholars, there are few faculty members, there are few professors, not few, sometimes there are many also. They are also updating their LinkedIn profile with their list of publications. So if you are doing so, that means you are giving yourself a professional e-visibility. The next category and the most important category, which I'm going to discuss in detail, is it's called research e-visibility. Research e-visibility means when you have started getting H-index citation, I10 index in Scopus, Web of Science or Google Scholar, that means these indexing databases, they are automatically indexing your paper. And the reason is because you have published your research paper with that journals, which are basically indexed by these databases, right? And then if you are creating your ResearchGate account, if you have created your academia.com account, if you have created your Mendeley account, right? So through these platforms, you are also letting aware, you are also making aware the researcher community that these are my research publications and it is now available for academic use, right? So these three are broader category of making your research visible in any professional or any general e-visibility platform. Now, talking about what are the different tools, what are the different ways, what are the different techniques through which we can make our research visible to the academic community. Now, the first thing is, which is very important for all the researcher, is author identifier or author profile, right? So again, there are two categories. There are some databases like Scopus or Web of Science. They are automatically creating your author identifier or author profile based on your publication. And there are few websites, like not few, there are good websites like ResearchGate, Academia Edu, Mendeley, etc., ORCID, etc., where you have to register yourself and you have to put all your publications, right? So broadly, we given the term author identifier or profile, and again there are two categories. Now let's talk about the Scopus ID, right? So as we know, whenever we talk about measuring the impact of scientific publication, the only two databases which are very well known, worldwide accepted, and these are Scopus, Web of Science. Now let's try to discuss about the Scopus ID, right? As I just mentioned, that Scopus automatically assign a unique author identifier to all the authors of content in the Scopus database and generate a publication list associated with each identifier, right? So if you have published your research with Scopus Index Journal, then there is no need to register yourself in Scopus, because Scopus will take care about all your publications, right? But again, you can't rely 100% on Scopus profile. And why I'm saying this thing to you, I have two examples to justify my statement. Now, the first example which I wanted to share with you is of year 2010. So in that year, we started taking subscription of Scopus for our Punjab University, right? So that year only, Professor R.K. Kohli just retired as a Vice Chancellor from Central University of Bhatinda. He was in Punjab. So he called me in his office and just called me, and he just shown the Scopus profile to me. And he said, Neeraj, if you can see that I have a good number of publications. At that time, sir has published more than 500 papers. But Scopus has listed only 200 papers. So sir was very much surprised that how it is possible that most of my research are, I have published with quality journals. They are having a good impact factor. But why Scopus is not indexing my paper? So he just called me and just told me, can you please check why it is giving, wrong information in my data, in my profile. So I search profile, and then I also surprised to see that there are very good publications which are missed out by the Scopus. Then I contacted the Scopus team and just I informed the same thing with them. So he said, can you share the list of that person? That time Vinod was there. So he told me, can you share the list of journals where Professor Kohli has published his research paper? So I've shared the list of journals, and at the same time also, I have checked the journal in the sources tab, whether that journal is indexed or not. And I found that almost all the journals where sir has published the paper, they are indexed by the Scopus. Even in that scenario also, Scopus is failed to index all their research papers. So then we contacted the Scopus team, then we have sent all the list of publication of Professor Kohli to Scopus, and then only they have added the publications in their profile, right? So this is the one example where I am trying to say is that always don't rely 100% of what Scopus is giving to you. This is about the personal profile. Now coming to the institutional profile, like last year we were reviewing the Punjab University publications and citation data before submitting to the Times Higher Education ranking. Now earlier they used to take the data from the university. Now as per their policy, they are taking the data of publication and citation at their own because they have tie-up with the Scopus database. But we were just reviewing about the publication and citation history of Punjab University, and even we surprised to know there are many publications which are not clubbed with Punjab University because there is a problem of common name. For example, Mahesh, Suresh, Ramesh. And the same name professor can be, with different universities. So even the head of the IQSC department, Professor Ashish Jain, he is presently heading the IQSC department. He's from dental science field. He said, even some of my publications, they are sharing with the same name, Ashish Jain, who belongs to some other university. Now we randomly selected 10 or 15 authors, and we found that out of 10 or 15, there are 4 or 5 authors where the exact publication of that particular author is not displaying in the Scopus database. So we contact the Scopus database, and the Scopus team has suggested us, sir, can you share the ORCID ID profile of all your faculty members? And we just cross-check on while visiting the ORCID website, and out of the 800 faculty members, we have just seen that only 300 or 350 faculty members, they have created their account, right? So we suggested our faculty member to create their up-to-date record of ORCID for their publications, because Scopus, if you are maintaining your ORCID ID accurately, then there will be no chance of data mismatch. Even if there is any spelling variation, if there is a common name, things are there. Even in that case also, if you have up-to-date profile in ORCID, the Scopus will definitely give you the 100% accurate data as far as your indexing of your paper is concerned, right? So even in the ORCID, there is an option. If you put your Scopus ID, automatically it will extract all your publication, and vice versa with the Scopus. So if you are updating your ORCID ID, there is a less chance that the Scopus will wrongly present your data. So now the first thing from where the research scholar or the library professional, they can start making their research visible is a ORC ID or ORCID. Some different people, they pronounce differently. And I've attended one lecture by some professor of some university. It is related to this ORCID only. And he termed this ORC ID as an Aadhaar card for a researcher. Right. So generally in Aadhaar card, all our personal details are clubbed with that particular ID. So similarly, he said that the ORCID ID should be treated like Aadhaar ID for all the academician and the research scholar. So I will suggest all the professional that first you create your ORC ID. And it is not only about creating your ORC ID. Sometimes I also fail to update my account of ORCID ID. So you have to spend some time from your busy schedule just to maintain whatever profile you have created, so that you can update on timely basis. So like I've created ORCID ID, and I'm sure that most of you are also created your ORCID ID, but always try to update all your publications with ORCID ID. So if you are managing your ORCID ID, the first platform where the researcher, they can showcase, or you can showcase the visibility of your research, because lots of millions researchers, they are connected with this platform. I can't say that majority of the researchers, they have a privilege of accessing Scopus or Web of Science, but most of them, they have a privilege of accessing this ORCID ID, from where they can see your publication profile, right? So the first thing is creating your ORC ID. Researcher IDs, now it is known as Publance, ID. So it is basically a product of Web of Science. Now, similar to Scopus, Web of Science is also creating automatic profile of every researcher who is contributing research paper in Web of Science Index Journal. But that matrix will only give you the data about number of papers, number of citations. But if you wanted to know more about the data analytics part of your research, then in that case, you have to create your researcher IDs or Publance researcher IDs while visiting this website. So there are two options are available. You have an option, you can register yourself individually also, and institution can also register themselves, and they can put together all the faculty profile under one umbrella, and they can see the overall H index and all these data analytics from institution point of view, right? So these are some of the benefits why you have to create your researcher IDs, right? The next is Google Scholar. I think there is no need to discuss more about Google Scholar, right? And if some of you have not yet created your Google Scholar, I think this is the simplest platform from where you can make your research visible, right? But let me tell you one more time that before making your research visible in any platform, which either I have shown, which I am going to share in my upcoming slide, is you check the copyright policies, you check the self-archiving policies, right? After checking that, you can use a platform, right? So ensure that all your works are good together in a Google Scholar and enables you to track citation of your research, right? So this is again a very beautiful platform, very simple platform from where you can make your research visible, and at the same time you can also measure the impact of your research in terms of citation, in terms of H index, or in terms of item index. ResearchGate, I think it was started by European commercial social networking site, and for scientists and researchers, it was launched in 2008. Now it is having more than 5 million members, right? So you can create your profile, you can put all your publications. So other than giving the impact part or data analytics part, let me give you my own personal example of using this ResearchGate. When I was doing my PhD from Punjab University, at that time I have some confusion about the sample size which I have selected for my study, because I have selected a heterogeneous group of institutions, and there the number of populations, there is a large variations. Like for old institutions, there are more than 1000 users, and for newly established institutions there are only 200 users or 500 users. So I was very much confused which sampling size or which sampling method I have to use just to give a generalized perception of my research. So I discussed with my peer group here in Punjab University also, but whatever suggestions given by my fellow colleagues, I was not satisfied. So what I did is I put the same thing on ResearchGate, and the next day I got reply from one of the professors from Oxford University. And on the same day, I got reply from one of the research scholar who was at that time working with some Australian university. And likewise, I have received 14 or 15 reply from the research scholar, the faculty member. And they have actually given me the idea. They have actually shown me the path. Like the sample size which I have selected is 100% scientifically wrong. And they have given clear explanation about how I can go with selecting a right sample size. So in that way, I'm very much helpful to this platform, which has helped me not only in terms of knowing the citation or H index, it also helped me in terms of clearing my doubt at that time. And one recent example I just wanted to quote with you. Recently, I did some scientometric study which I have uploaded on this platform. So one of the research scholar who did PhD from Punjab University, now she is doing postdoc from some Japan university. So she just downloaded my paper, and then next, I think after downloading within I think 2 or 3 days, she sent me an email that she wanted to collaborate with me regarding one paper. So I discussed with her over phone, and she said that I am doing research on climate change and biodiversity, and I wanted to know the publication trend in these two areas. So I've just gone through with your paper where you have done such type of scientometric studies. So are you interested in doing some type of collaboration work? I said yes, why not? And she suggested me on which area she wanted a data from Scopus, which type of the scientometric techniques I wanted to apply. All the subjective parts she is taking care. And whatever data she is requiring, I have just extracted from Scopus. I have done the calculation, which we generally do whenever we are writing the scientometric study. So now the paper is ready, and most probably we will going to submit it on scientometrics on PLOS One journal. So this is another advantage. Not only you are getting the citation, you can also get the opportunity to collaborate with some of the topmost publishers from anywhere in the world. So Academia EDU is again a very good tool, which is very famous among the research scholars. And when you compare, even when you do some study, ResearchGate versus academia.edu, there are many personal comments or other observations made by different research scholars across the world. And to summarize this thing, I just wanted to say that before making this PowerPoint presentation for today's lecture, I was also doing some sort of comparison between ResearchGate and academia. And based on my little bit of study, I can say that academia.edu is very good, is having an upper edge over ResearchGate as far as presenting the data analytics is concerned. On ResearchGate, you will get the impact of your research in a very simpler way. But in this academia.edu, if you have your personal experience also, you can see there are lots of metrics are available, which will help you in terms of measuring the impact of your research. So again, it was also launched in 2008, and it is having more than 13 million members. So you can imagine the popularity of ResearchGate as well as the academia.edu amongst the academic community, right? LinkedIn is again a very good professional networking website. Generally, it is used for your professional thing, but like for example, he's a professor at some university in USA, and you can see he has also created his publication profile in LinkedIn, right? So in this way, we can also educate, or we can also guide our teacher or our faculty member to have their account in LinkedIn, right? Mendeley, we all know that is a very good reference management software, and most of us are using as far as managing our references is concerned. But this website is also very much useful, right, for managing all your research publications, making your own profile in Mendeley account. I'm audible. Is there any disturbance?
No, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. Because I'm getting some calls, so I thought not be related to this thing. Okay, anyway. Now, so whatever platform I have just explained to you, I'm sure that most of you are familiar with all this researcher ID, Scopus and all these things. Now, there are some other good academic social networking websites are available. The objective is the same, that to make your research available in different platforms. It's called Impact Story, right? Personally, I had not created my account, but whatever I know about this Impact Story, it really impressed me that there is a lots of facilities are available in this website where you can import, you can tweet your paper, you can use the social networking tool if you have created your account. So if you are having Impact Story account, you can directly link all your publication with ORCID ID. And if you have some publication data on Crossref, automatically there is a good algorithm designed by this software which extract the data. So it's basically a very good tool for identity management and metadata management of all your publication. And you can see that some of the faculty have created their account in Impact Story, and you can see that the total number of downloads, the total number of reads, the total number of citations. So again, Impact Story is again a very good tool. Kudos is again a very powerful platform as far as making your author profile is concerned. Again, I have not a personal experience with Kudos, but whatever I have just searched or whatever I have just learned before making this presentation, I really impressed with Impact Story and Kudos, and I'm sure that whenever I will get time, I will try to explore these things more in detail also. Zenodo, again, it's a very open repository platform. Like some of the platform, they require a registration from your end, right? And when you register yourself with such social networking website, you are not much aware what the companies they are doing with your data, because there are some studies which have shown that whatever publications you are uploading on Mendeley or ResearchGate or any academic network website, they have their commercial angle also, because there's a concept of, discovery tool, there's a concept of anti-plagiarism software. So you never know, whatever data you are making on a public accessible platform, what other purpose they are using, whether they are using for commercial or not. That is why there's a concept of open repository. So open repository, their vision, their objective is very much clear. Their objective is to promote the open science culture amongst the research scholars, right? So they don't have any commercial agenda or hidden agenda behind this. So Genendo is again very open platform, which is basically supported by CERN, and here you can keep, create your all your research profile, and you can also upload your publications also. And these are some of the reasons why you should use Genendo for making your research visible. Now, this is the one way through which you can manage your research data. That is known as your creating your author profile. The second is sharing research data. And I think I'm very much confident that this topic has been taken by Dr. Sanjay Kataria, and he has also developed expertise in this area. So whatever I'm going to speak on research data, I'm sure that 100% it will be a replication of what he has already explained to you. But let me give you a quick overview about the research data is. The main thing about the research data is there is a cases of data falsifications, there is data cases of data manipulations, and there is a cases of plagiarism. Now there are many reputed publishers. Now what is their policy is, let's take example of PLOS ONE. If you wanted to publish your research paper with PLOS ONE, you have to share your research data, right? Even the paper which I have just quoted, which we are planning to submit to PLOS ONE or Scientometrics, what I'm planning to do is, whatever analysis I have done using Excel, from where I have extracted the Scopus data, that data also I am going to upload as a supplementary material, because that data will validate all my findings, all my suggestions, all my conclusions, which I have noted on the base of my data. So now there is a concept, the scenario is going to be changed, and there are many institutions, there are many funding agencies in foreign where they have made it mandatory that before publishing your research work, you have to also upload your research data, right? And by attending Dr. Sanjay Kataria, you must be aware about what is the concept of research data, right? So there are many repositories are available like Figshare, right? So you also explore these repository, and you can see how you can upload your Excel file, because sometimes the data from your point of view will give some different interpretation, like glass आधा भरा है कि glass आधा खाली है. The data is remain the same, but the interpretation it might be different. So sometimes rather than your paper, your data is more important for the researcher, and they can use this data and they can write their own interpretation if you are managing your research data in such repository, right? So again, we have to share our research paper, there is no doubt in that, but again we have to also share our research data which we have generated, which we have compiled, which we have collected, which we have analyzed during our research process, right? The next thing is the concept of preprint repository and subject repository, right? So there is one study, I forgot to quote it, give the link at the bottom of the slide, in which it is clearly written that great place to make your research output available openly are institutional and subject repository. And now we know with the concept of archive, what is the importance of preprint archive. Now there are many research scholars before publishing their research paper with any publisher, they are uploading their preprint on archive like repository. They are taking the feedback from the academic community, and once they will get the feedback, once it is approved by the academic community, once if any researcher in that area has given some suggestion, after incorporating their suggestions, then only they are submitting for publication in any journal. So now in academic community, everyone knows the importance of preprint repository. So what you can do is, I've already explained you, the copyright right always remains with the preprint of your research paper. So all such preprint you can upload on various preprint repository like arXiv, CiteSeer, right? Research paper in economics. There are many more if you wanted to search on preprints, right? The next thing is communicate your research online, right? So if you are having Twitter account and if you have published your research paper, there is no harm if you can tweet in a very short limiting word of 40 words about your research paper, because whatever network you have established during the Twitter, immediately it got a visibility. Like for example, if I have delivered my today's lecture, the first thing which comes in my mind is, if I have a time, if I have a photograph, just try to put on our Facebook account. Why I wanted to do things? Because I want from my fellow colleagues, from my library science fraternity, to see that this is the lecture I have delivered in such and such workshop, so that I can get the likes and feedback or the comments. So this thing we are doing when you are doing a personal promotion, personal, professional you can say, but this professional is something different because you have just delivered the lecture. But when it comes to publishing our research is concerned, we are not making that much effort which we are making as far as our personal visibility are concerned. So if you are publishing your research paper, you can tweet it. There is a one website, it's called Humanity Commons, right? I will always suggest you try to explore this website. And this is based on the concept of Open Repository Exchange, which is a open access huge database known as core, right? And their basic idea is to have a repository of all the preprint papers so that you can upload or you can make it visible. SlideShare, it is not directly related with your research publication, but yes, you can share your presentation, infographic and more, right? So the purpose is to whatever things, whatever content, even whenever, let's take for example, for today's presentation only, I think invested my one day, right? So if I can put this slide on a slide share, so in this way, whosoever is interested in reading about or learning about the research visibility, or for any upcoming speaker who wanted to share their thoughts on this thing, so in this way you are basically helping your professional fellow, professional colleague, so that there will be no replication of content, and at the same time you can also save their effort and time, right? Fixer I have already explained to WordPress. Now, the last way through which you can make your research visible is creating your own blog, right? And we all know that WordPress, WebLay, Blogger, these are some of the tools which are very much helpful in terms of creating your blog. And there are many studies which have also confirmed, like there is one study which is conducted by Melissa Terrace from University of College London, Center for Digital Humanities. And in her study, she has written that if you tell people about your research, they will definitely going to look at it. And your research will get looked at more than papers which are not promoted by social media. So even in her study, she is suggesting, she is recommending that if you are publishing a quality paper, if you are publishing a research, try to explore all the options, all the tools are available so that you can make your research visible to the academic community, right? So blog is again a very powerful tool through which you can share all your research visibility. Now, never underestimate the power of librarians in terms of educating our users as far as research impact is concerned, or as far as making our research visibility is concerned, right? Because for teacher and research scholar, they are more focused about their teaching and research. They don't have such much that much of time, and sometimes they also don't have interest to explore such website. But being a library science professional, being an information professional, it is our duty to educate our research scholar that don't stop if you have published your paper with Elsevier or Wiley. The journey will start from that also, where you have, once you have published your paper, the next thing is you have to make your research visible so that you can get a visibility in academic community, and at the same time you can also receive citation for your research paper, right? So whatever thing which we can explain regarding this thing, I think no faculty or research scholar can explain in a better way, right? So this is all about my today's presentation. So I have tried to cover most of the tools and the platform which is helpful for the researcher scholar as far as making our research visibility is concerned. And I have not touched the area research impact in detail because one of my friend, Dr. Neeraj Chaurasia from IIT Delhi, is going to deliver a talk most probably today or tomorrow. So he will explain you details about what are the metrics available on research impact. So I will just I have tried to focus my presentation in research visibility area only, but still there are some sites which are available and which I have not included in my presentation that you can also explore if you wanted to, doing any sort of research, or if you have generated any interest where you wanted to make your research visible in any open access platform, right? So this is all about my presentation. So if you have any query, if you wanted to discuss further, if you want any questions, then you are most welcome. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Dr. Neeraj Kumar Singh, for nicely presenting a very elaborate and excellent presentation on the research visibility. You have covered very extensively. First, you compare the United States with other countries and India, and you have shown us how they are ahead of us. And you have taken all the sites in detail to give our participant a brief background of all those sites where we can put our research publications, we can put our profile so that our peer friends or our fellow researcher, maybe in India or abroad, they can see what we are doing. So in this way, we can enhance our visibility. You have also covered very new, which I have also not known earlier about that impact story. This is a new thing. Most of I think participant first time or not heard about this impact story and Kudos, Genedo. All these are new for me also. And of course, most of the thing you have covered. And remaining part, I think Dr. Neeraj Chaurasia will cover. One thing I would like to mention here that in this direction, InfluBNet has also taken initiative. So earlier they have developed one Vidwan database where all the university faculty, they can create their profile, and all Vidwan database is also linked to all the identification site. Now they have developed another based on Vidwan database, Information Research Network, IRINS. And in that they are developing the profile. That our faculty members, they must, those who are associate professor and above, they should definitely create their profile in that InfluBNet site Vidwan database. And it also automatically takes publications from different sites. So that that part maybe Neeraj Chaurasia may take this in detail, and that from my side. And I hope all the participants they might have benefited for your very elaborate and extensive presentation. So thank you so much for very elaborately presenting this topic, research visibility. And you know that uh, ranking of the university depends on our impact factor, our research visibility. So we have various ranking system in India, NIRF, NAC, NBA, and ICMAR, and different uh, agencies are there to do accreditation of our university. And this is the criteria is that the research publication and impact factor are very important criteria for getting higher rank So I think Thapar Institute of Technology, they have also got a very good rank in the ranking of NIRF and other ranking. So definitely this, if you make your research visible, definitely there will be more citation of your publications, and in this way your impact factor will be increased, and also the position of your university or institution where you are working, definitely that will go high and will take a good ranking in a university ranking system. Thank you so much for nicely presenting. With this, I hand over mic to Dr. Sri Ram for further announcement.
So thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Sinha and Dr. Neeraj. So it was actually quite scintillating presentation. So what I can see through the chat, so people are they are not typing any questions in between, and they have just started bombarding with the questions at the end of the session only. So you can imagine that how important this session was for each and everyone. And I'm sure that this is going to really helpful for each and every one of us, so that we can give some impact to our research taking place at the respective institutions, and also we can educate our faculty members and research scholars to create and use such kind of platform to market their research activity. So thank you so much. So before I actually ask my colleague to read out the question, I have a question with Dr. Neeraj about when I was planning to create our preprint archive server for our institutional publications. When I submitted my proposal, detailed proposal, how we are going to do it, and then I was invited by our dean research and deputy director about some kind of clarifications. They wanted to seek from us how we are going to deal with a copyright problem, because I had used the terminology pre-print server. So when I was explaining to him what is the meaning of pre-print server, he immediately denied that why we are going to submit our paper pre-published version of the article. Then I explained him all these things. Anyhow, thereafter we decided that we will not going to submit any pre-published version. Rather, we can only include which have been accepted version of the publications. So I just wanted to hear from you what could be the best suggestions for the benefit of for all participants, and also for my own clarification. So what will be your suggestion how to motivate our faculty member or research scholar why they should use pre-print version of their articles to be submitted either third party or our institutional preprint server?
Okay. So, can you hear me, Dr. Sriram?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So, sir, coming to your point, like in your questions, there are two things. From institution point of view, and the second is from research scholar point of view.
Yes.
So, from institution point of view, if we are planning to have our preprint server or preprint repository, from authority point of view, they always have a issue related to copyright. Like if we will upload our paper before publishing it, there is chances that someone can steal the idea, someone can copy the idea, right? So without publishing our research, why there is a need to showcase what we are doing to the academic community, right? Coming to this question, when we read the history of archive, which is well-known preprint, repository for uploading the preprint version, even when they have started the same questions, and based on this, it was critically, challenged by some of the topmost published professors who were working in different universities. So now, even if you have any experience or if you have tried to upload your preprint in any preprint repository, their idea is first you have to create your profile. So once you will create your profile and you will upload the preprint version, on that particular day, the repository will show you that this author or this researcher has uploaded this paper with this title and all the details related to submission of your preprint. So for example, if anyone in future try to steal your idea, try to copy your idea, right? You can always challenge that this is the paper, this is the preprint of my version, which I have uploaded on this repository on that particular day. But from research scholar point of view, earlier they are having some sort of doubt related to whether there is a need to upload our research paper before publishing or not. Then they realized that this repository is not about only uploading the paper, because once you will upload your paper, whosoever will be the expert in your domain, they will definitely going to read your paper, right? So before peer review process of editor point of view or publisher point of view, they will do the peer review process of your research paper. That is why if you see the popularity of all preprint repositories, this is the main reason, because before publishing their paper, they got the feedback from their academic community. Yes, so from individual point of view, you can always go with any preprint repository, but when you try to establish the preprint repository at your institutional level, you have to clarify, and sometimes it is very difficult to convince our higher authorities that there is no copyright issue and there is a very less chances that someone will steal your idea. So it depends sometime on the higher authority, sometime about the team of the library, how they convince their authority. This is what is my personal view on this.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. I think this is a fair clarification about the concept. So I'm sure that this is going to clear our doubt as well, and we will able to propose to our authorities. So may I request our team to take some questions, because it's already 11:31 and our panel is already there on board. Next session. So Dr. Harsing and Harpreet, can you find any questions there?
Yes, sir. There are some questions, sir.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes.
I'm
yes.
audible, sir?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Sir, first question is, in WordPress, is it necessary to create a website under WordPress to make our article visible, sir? Sir, Dr. Neeraj?
Yeah,
Yes.
even I have in my presentation also, I'm not saying that you start creating your blog using WordPress. Even if you are having a Gmail account, you can go with Blogger or Weebly, or there are many tools are available, right? So WordPress is definitely going to give you a professional look of your blog. And for creating your blog on WordPress, you need to understand the technical features of WordPress, and sometimes you also need some technical things before creating your blog. So if you are new to your blog, I will recommend you to go with Blogger. And once you are comfortable with Blogger, you try to learn about the WordPress and the Weebly, right? So all these are the different platforms. But the thing is, how your blog look like when the user they read, right? So in this way, I think WordPress gives a professional look.
Okay, sir. Sir, next question is from Deepika. She is asking, can we upload the data extract from Web of Science, which was part of my research, onto this platform as supplementary material?
No, I think research data is the data which you have either compiled, collected, or analyzed during your process. Like for example, as I mentioned earlier, that if you are doing any scientometric study and you have extracted the data on that particular topic on that particular time period, right? So if there is a condition of publisher that you have to upload the research data, in that case there is no harm, because you are uploading the Excel file of that data, and based on that data you have done the analysis, right? So it will come under the research data part, and there is no harm if you can upload this.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, next question is from Dr. Navita. Sir, she is asking how to avoid plagiarism issue while making our research visible through so many platforms, sir.
I think the simplest answer to your query is, now as per the UGC guidelines, if you are submitting PhD, if you are publishing your research paper, you have to check your paper using any anti-plagiarism software, and the percentage should be below 10%. Sometimes it's depend upon the publishers at what level, at what similarity level they are accepting your paper. So it is nothing to do with the plagiarism because it is related to publishing your research paper, right? So you have to take this issue when you are publishing your research papers. Once it is published, once you have fulfilled all the condition, all the requirement of the publisher, in that case, there is no harm of uploading your paper in any
Okay,
report.
sir. Okay, sir. Thank you. Sir, one more question is how to check duplication of author title in academia.edu, sir?
Right. I think even like sometimes what happened is, let's take example of mine. I've also created my account using my Gmail in 2009 on 10. And then I forgot my login ID and password. Then again, I have created my account with the same name, right? So sometime when you are in the experimental age, sometime, even we create our 2 or 3 accounts. So there is always a chance that you can search with the same name, and whatever name Academia or ResearchGate is giving you as a profile, you can always check whether it is yours or someone else's profile, so that you can always do.
Okay, sir. One more question, sir. Sir, she is asking, our library has created a Google Scholar page of our institute. I have manual pasted all the articles published by our faculty, sir. Can this page be uplinked to our website to increase visibility, sir?
Yes, I think let me tell you one thing. If you are creating your institutional profile using Google Scholar, there is a limitation of article. I think if I am not wrong, it's about 10,000 articles, something. So, for example, like in case of Punjab University, where there are 800 faculty members and they have published more than 50,000 research paper. In that case, it is not possible to create an institutional account using Google Scholar, right? But you are absolutely free. You have all the rights. If you are in your institution, if you wanted to put a link of your Google Scholar for your institutional ID, that you can always do. There is no problem in that case.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, this is the last question. Can you please suggest me which is the best and easy publisher to publish our subject, sir? Library science, sir.
Well, can you repeat the question?
Yes, sir, sure. Sir, can you please suggest me which is the best and easy publisher to publish our subject, sir, library science?
So if you can tell me, then I will also try to publish my research paper in that publisher. So, it's a very personal answer. I think everyone has a different opinion about which is the simplest and best publisher. So you can always check any journal with whether it is Scopus Index or not, what type of impact factor it is having, whether it is peer reviewed or not. So rather than selecting the simple journal, if you will go with some quality journal, that will always help you in terms of your academic reputation for your selection and promotion, right? So don't select the easy publisher. Always try to publish with some quality publisher.
Sir, one more question from my friend Jagjeet Singh, sir. Sir, can we consider open access journals for more visibility in research?
Yes, there are many studies where they have confirmed that if you publish your research paper in open access platform, then you will immediately start receiving the e-visibility, which I have explained to you. Means once you publish your paper will be searchable through any search engine, right? In that case, even you have to don't put much effort on making your research visible. So yes, if you found that in your subject area, there are good quality peer-reviewed index open access journals are available, always go with the open access publishing.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, thank you so much. Mic over to you, sir. Dr. Sriram, sir.
So thank you, Gurvinder, and thank you, everyone. So in fact, this is a quite nice session for each and everyone. And I think Dr. Neeraj want to add something. So Dr. Neeraj, unmute yourself.
Yeah. So I think first of all, congrats to both of you, especially Dr. Sriram, to have the speakers like Dr. Neeraj Singh and others. So congratulations to both of you.
Thank you, sir.
And I have just a small clarification because I have not used that site which you have shown, like Scholars Copyright Addendum Engine. So I have not used it.
Okay.
So I just want to have some clarification on that, because currently number of publishers, they are having their own agreements,
Yes.
right? So like if you are submitting a paper to Elsevier or some other publishers, they will be having their own agreements. So how this website is going to help in this regard? Because it is similar to like the agreements which are the resources for which we are subscribing. So this is similar kind of things, I think. So how this website will be helping, because they will be having their own terms, conditions and language. So the agreements from your side, whether they will be accepting or not, this will be a question. So how this website is going to help to the researchers? So this is, I just need your clarification on this.
Yes, sir. Even Dr. Neeraj, when you visit this website, as I mentioned in my presentation also, there are 4 or 5 type of access right. Right. For example, you wanted to retain the access right for your reuse purpose, right? So in that case, you select the access right, and then accordingly, it will create 5 or 6, points which you wanted, which you can share with the publishers, that before publishing my research paper with you, with your journal, this access right I wanted to retain for a lifetime with me. And from my side, these are the points which I wanted to incorporate in your copyright agreement. So as I mentioned, that it varies from publisher to publisher. Some of the publishers, they don't have any problem if you wanted to retain the access right. So in that case, definitely they will going to incorporate all your 5 or 6 points which you have generated, which you have created using this website. And once you will sign the copyright agreement, even after publishing, you can reuse your publication. But again, it's a matter of from the publisher's end whether they are going to accept your terms and conditions or not. But this website will basically help you in terms of creating your legality point of view. Like sometimes we don't know, like even for accessing the reuse right, what type of legal language we have to write. So in this case, this website will help you, but it's totally depend upon the publishers whether they are accepting or not. This is what I wanted to.
So thank you, Dr. Neeraj, and thank you, Dr. Chaurasia. So I think we should bind up because our next panel is already on board. So before we say thank you to each of our moderator and speakers, may I request our team to quickly go for vote of thanks, please.
Thank you, sir. Good morning to all. On behalf of the Program Organizing Committee and my own behalf, I would like to thank our guest speaker, Dr. Neeraj Singh, for his valuable time and gracing the occasion with an insightful thoughts on the topic research visibility, tools and techniques. He has explained the topic very well. I'm sure that the contents shall be very useful to all of us. I would like to thank our moderator, Professor M.K. Sinha, for his time and moderated the session tactfully and conducted the session smoothly. I would like to thank Mr. Gurvinder Singh for taking up the questions minutely and helping in solving the queries of the participants. I would like to thank all the participants for patience hearing. Thank you all. Thanks once again.
So thank you, Harpreet. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Neeraj. Thank you, Dr. Sinha. So hope to connect you sometime somewhere else and in our future program as well. So once again, thank you on behalf of all of us. So